Well, hello and welcome to another video in the series where we're focused on the Quantum VWAP Pro indicator and the 5 variants that go to make up the package that come with it. And in this one, we're going to take a close look at the Interday VWAP, which was one we developed specifically with investing in mind. So it's very different from the other variants which you may have watched on the earlier videos, because as I say, this variant, this version, the Interday VWAP, is firmly planted in the investment area of the business. So we're looking at the longer term timeframes here. We're on the daily chart here for stock DuPont with the ticker DD. And we're going to look at the dailies and the weeklies and the monthlies, because those are the time frames that the indicator has been developed for. So it's very different in that respect. It's also very different in another respect, in that it uses a different approach, a slightly different approach, not in terms of the VWAP, I hasten to add, but in terms of the way the data is presented on the screen. And here we use anchors. Now, you've already come across the terminology anchors in the, no doubt, in the anchored VWAP indicator, where you have the option to literally drop anchor on any point on the chart. Similar principle here. The difference is that the anchoring mechanism is already embedded in the setups for the indicator. So you simply select which one you wish to use. Now, we actually make recommendations in this sense, and we're on the daily time frame here, and I'll show you the back end in a moment, but you have the option to use the weekly, the monthly, or the yearly anchors. And the two we focus on particularly are the monthly and the yearly. We don't use the weekly. When we're on the daily time frame, we use the monthly anchor. And that is why you see, as we go through each month, if we scroll down to the bottom here, you can see this is March, so we're resetting there. We move to April, and we're resetting on April. We move to May, we're resetting in June, we're resetting in July, and we're just starting in August, so we've got a reset here as well. So we're resetting on the month, and if I show you where that is in the back of the settings, we just click on the cog. There we go. You can see we're on the Interday, which is the 5th of our 5 variants. We've got the anchored VWAP, the VWAP itself, the moving volume weighted average price, the TWAP, the time weighted average price, and now we're on the Interday, which is squarely planted in the investment sector. And then down the bottom here, you can see we have the Interday WAP period, and this is set to monthly. We have, as I mentioned, the weekly, the monthly, and the yearly. But what we recommend is that for the dailies, you use the monthly. And then when you move to the slower time frames of the weeklies and the monthly charts, you then switch to using the yearly anchor. So it's rather like, to use a sailing analogy for a moment, forgive me, but moving from one destination to another, moving from one cove to another, or moving from a nice anchorage to another anchorage, you are literally upping anchor and you're moving on to the next place. And it's the same here. So when we're on the daily, we use the monthly anchor, and it presents the data in this very clean, beautiful way. As you can see with this stock, the analysis that we apply to our VWAP is exactly the same as we would whether this was on a 1 minute time frame or a 1 monthly. It's exactly the same. We're looking at the VWAP itself, our central line. We're looking at our outer envelopes, the upper envelope and the lower envelope. We're looking for how far the price action has moved away from the VWAP. Are we moving into a situation where the stock is overbought, or the stock is expensive, if you care to look at it in those terms? Are we moving to a point down here where the stock is considered cheap or underpriced, undervalued, if you will? And then we move back up through the VWAP, back up to our outer envelope. And you can see literally how tight this price action is in terms of the stock movement from the outer envelope, from the lower envelope to the upper envelope, all controlled around the VWAP, which is the fair value, if you like, of the stock. It denotes that fair value where the central line just oscillates. And we are constantly looking at the trend of that VWAP. Are we an uptrend? Are we downtrend? Where are we going sideways? We're in very strong uptrend, as you can see over here for the stock. Very nice. We've had the price bouncing off the upper envelope as we've tracked up all here, all for the month of July and into August, and hopefully that will continue. And at the bottom here, we have our volume for volume price analysis. So we're using it in precisely the same way. The only difference is that we are very much focused on slower timeframes. So this is the daily. Now we're going to move to the weekly. And here we are on the weekly time frame. And as you can see, we haven't changed our anchor. We've left the anchor at the original setting, which was the monthly. And of course, when we're on a weekly time frame, it's going to really compress the look of the indicator. So it's not terribly helpful. And this is why we move to our longer term anchorages. So we go back into our settings for the VWAP, and we scroll down here and we move this to our yearly setting, and we click OK. And now we are on our weekly chart, but we are looking at this through the prism of an annual anchor. So we've moved to the yearly, and as you can see, this was 2022, so we have a reset there. We have a reset in 2023. And as I explained in the introductory comments, it is a time when we assess things, when we have New Year's resolutions, but it's very seasonal. The markets are closed generally for a couple of weeks or so, very thin, and it's a time to assess, reassess, consider, look back. How did we do last year? How did our portfolio do? Was it good? Was it not so good? What areas of risk do we need to adjust? Are there stocks we need to get rid of because they're just not performing for us? Are there stocks we need to buy? And so on and so forth. So it's really a time when we reassess, and it's precisely the same with the indicator. It's a point when it re-anchors itself to the chart, and we get a fresh perspective, and off we go again. But other than that, it works in exactly the same way. So this is on the weekly, and then of course we move on to the monthly, and here we are on the monthly time horizon. And this makes it very clear indeed. You can see the years clicking through 2019, 20, 21. And each time we get to a new year, we get a reset of the VWAP indicator. And it gives us a fresh perspective on where we are and where we're heading for the new year. And that is the way to use it. So when you're on your dailies, you use the monthly anchor. And any other time frames, the weeklies and the monthly time frames, we use the yearly anchor to give us this beautiful perspective of the VWAP when we're considering everything from an investment perspective. So it really is a longer term view, and it gives us that all important view. Are we going to buy this stock? Are we going to hold this stock? Do we want to sell this stock? Where are we going? Where are we in relation to the VWAP? Where are we in relation to the outer envelopes? Are we in uptrend? Are we in downtrend? Are we in longer term congestion? And so on and so forth. So it's used in precisely the same way. So let's look at another example. Let's go to GE and go through the same exercise with that one. So here we are on GE on the daily time frames. Just expand that. There we are. Just try and squeeze all that in. There we go. GE is a very interesting stock. I've referenced it in one or two other videos. It's after a very steep fall and an extended congestion phase, it was moving towards a very interesting price level where it was preparing to break out, and we've started to see that develop. So it's certainly an interesting stock to have on your watch list at the present moment. But again, as you can see, the VWAP works in exactly the same way. We've got our anchor, we've got our monthly anchor here, which you can see at the bottom here, resetting in June, resetting in here July, and we're just moving into the start of a new month, so we're going to reset here as well. This is our VWAP climbing nicely throughout the last month, doing very nicely with the price moving well above the envelope here, And we've had some earnings coming recently too. So that's on the daily for GE. Let's just have a quick look at the weeklies and the monthlies. And here we are on the weekly chart for GE. And I've deliberately left this with the incorrect anchor just to remind you. So if we go up here, we're still set on the monthlies, and we need to reset that to the annual to give us a much fresher look. There we go. And we're now set to the annual, the yearly. There we go. And that's how it looks. So just to remind you that you do have to reset the anchor when you're moving across the time horizons. But I think that gives you a wonderful view of GE, how we've climbed, lovely climbing view of the VWAP itself, very supportive of the outer envelope as we rise on the weekly chart. And if we move down onto the monthlies for GE, here we are on the monthly chart. No need to change the anchor, so the anchor stays as it is because it remains at the yearly setting for both the weekly and the monthly time horizons. And again, you can see how the VWAP operates on the time frames exactly the same way. The analysis is identical. Our VPA analysis is identical. It makes no difference, but we've just developed this specifically for the investment aspect of trading and investing to be used on the dailies, the weeklies, and the monthlies in that way. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular video. Lots more to come as always. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon, and bye for now.